All right, let's go back to that whole issue of the Albanese government claiming they were blindsided by that High Court ruling. You know, they couldn't predict it. They didn't think they were going to lose. We learn now, obviously, this week that they had been briefed. It was there very clearly in Justice Gleeson's directional hearing, her language and the material made available publicly, but the officers were told. Some ministers, of course, did not turn up. But we know it went as high as the Prime Minister's own department. So we didn't need to do what we did and put 149 foreign criminals out on the street. Someone who's followed this very closely for months, Shadow Minister for Immigration and Citizenship, Tehan, joins me now. Well, I make the point, Dan, a little earlier in the show, it has taken us a long time to get some truth. We now know how many people are out, we know what states they're living in, we know the extent of their pretty horrific crimes. We also know, and I think you made this point last year, the High Court decision pertained to just one individual. But Labor clearly panicked and put a whole lot of others out onto the street. But we also now know they were warned. I don't think we've got you there, have we? We haven't got you?
No.
Right, I'm going to take a quick break. We'll cut. I know I've got you. Have I got you there, Tehan?
Yeah, you do, Peter. And yes, we do know that they were warned. We know that they were warned in June. And what we also know, and this is just completely and utterly damning, the Minister for Immigration, Andrew Giles' office, then had 3 briefings with the legal counsel of the Department of Home Affairs after they knew that they had been warned that there was a danger. He didn't turn up to any of those 3 meetings. One was held in Canberra. He managed to turn up to a voice rally, not to the meeting with the legal counsel from the Department of Home Affairs. The other was held when he was in the United Kingdom, and he had time to do a video promoting the voice referendum, yet he didn't have time to get on the phone to join the meeting with the legal counsel with his own office. And the other meeting, we don't know why he didn't turn up. He wasn't doing anything to do with the voice on that day as far as we can tell, but he just didn't bother to turn up. Now, as you know, when you're seriously considering an issue that ultimately led to 149 people being freed by the government onto the streets, hardened criminals, 7 murderers, 37 sex offenders, you should be at those meetings. And that alone should be enough for the Prime Minister to sack the hapless and hopeless Immigration Minister.
Yeah, OK, so he was given 3 warnings. I'm sure he did in front, but his office knew, his department knew. We know that the Attorney-General was warned. We know there are other discussions across the board. We know Prime Minister and Cabinet was warned. Anyone who reads the transcripts of that court hearing with Justice Gleeson can read it, I think, in pretty much plain English. So the worst happens, they are released, and then you've got Claire O'Neill, and I played a clip of what she said a little earlier, out there saying, well, we had no idea this outcome was going to happen. We didn't have a plan B because we were always advised we would win the case. Well, that looks like a lie. And then you pursued the Minister today, Andrew Giles, over this idea that he is continuously monitoring these people. But how is that the case, Dan, when we know a lot of them aren't even wearing ankle bracelets?
Well, that's right. They're continuously monitoring people, and 36 of them don't have ankle bracelets. So we asked him why and how he can say that in the Parliament and why he hasn't misled the Parliament. Of course, he couldn't respond to that. And while they were continuously monitoring people, you've got to remember 18 of these people have reoffended. So if they were continuously monitoring them, they've continuously monitored them while they were reoffending. It just doesn't make any sense, and nothing the Minister is saying in his answers today or throughout the week make any sense. And that's why I think the Australian people are so concerned that this is a Minister who doesn't take their public safety seriously. That's not the number one objective that he has as a Minister. He seems to have priorities all across the shop apart from undertaking his number one duty, which is to keep the Australian community safe.
What do you make of Labor's claim today that this is all actually Peter Dutton's fault?
Well, isn't Claire O'Neill great? She's commissioned 3 reports into Peter Dutton by 3 people with sympathies towards the Labor Party, and that's been her focus. Now, while she's been doing that and commissioning those reports and trying to have a go at Peter Dutton, what we've seen is 149 hardened criminals, 7 murderers, 36 sex offenders, including child sex offenders, released onto the streets. What do we think Claire O'Neill's priority should be? Should be focusing on making sure none of those hardened criminals were released, rather than some sort of frolly which is about getting reports commissioned that are trying to have a go at Peter Dutton, who the Australian community know, and know in their own DNA, is an immigration minister who put their safety first. And that's why she's not going to get anywhere. But the sad reality is it's why we still have this situation of these hardened criminals on the street, because she's not doing her job. She's not doing her number one job to keep the Australian people safe.
Dan, just quickly, we know today that over 100 of these criminals are on welfare. We also know that no one in the government has made any application to lock them up again. We also know that no country wants to take any of them back. They're not Australian citizens. They're in this limbo state. So what happens next? I mean, are we to pay for these 149 criminals for the rest of their lives to live in Australia on welfare? What happens?
Well, it's a very good question, Peter, and that was one of the questions we asked Andrew Giles. We think that the welfare bill has now reached $3 million, and we asked him to confirm that in the Parliament yesterday, and he wouldn't do that. But the government has no answer to this question, and they've got no answer as to how they're going to deal with this going forward. Those 18 who have reoffended, if they would come clean and say how many of those are back in custody, well, we would know that they're not on welfare. But it seems that they're quite happy to see this drag along. And the sad reality is, and this is the thing that really, really concerns me, and I know it does all Australians, is we are just hoping that this huge blunder doesn't lead to more people being victims of these hardened criminals, because that's the sad reality. If they don't act, and especially those who have reoffended and reoffended more than once, to try and get them re-detained, my worry and my serious concern is more people are sadly going to get hurt.
Dan Tehan, thank you.